can be overwhelming to manage all of the things that one needs to manage when it comes to our financial lives. And then there's the reality that life throws us curveballs. We're going to talk about a very personal experience that our author has, and also her choice to write a book to capture some of that wisdom and make it available to her readers. Marlene Chiarotto wrote a book called Achieve Financial Freedom on Your Own Terms. She's a CPA by background, and that's relevant here too. Hello, Marlene. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Bruce. It's a pleasure.
So, we talk about money books all the time on this show. And one of the things that I think really resonates with people is to understand the context from which the author comes. You've got some hard earned experience here. You write about it in the book. Give us the essence of your journey and where you started when it comes to writing the book and what you've gone through.
Sure. Like I said, like you mentioned, I'm a CPA by background, so numbers have been part of my life, my career, my education for so long. But really, what pushed me to write this book about finance was the lived experience that I've had having to manage different experiences and the implications of money in those experiences. And so, really, the impetus that triggered my desire to do this was the death of my spouse. He was 42. I was 42 at the time. I had two young children, 12 and 9. And it was really a flash moment for me, even with my experience, how intimidating and how scary and uncertain that feeling was, and feeling alone and isolated, which I think is an experience that's commonly shared by folks who are going through uncertain times and kind of dealing with the unplanned. And, I've learned that you have to plan for the unplanned. My life experience throughout my book, and I've really written each chapter with feet walking through them, and felt that was an important part of my legacy, which is also a key theme in my book, is to share with my kids, but also my network and with others what that experience is, in a way that really is kind of like me sitting across the dinner table from you, or sitting at a coffee shop, in a way that feels safe, without shame, without judgment, and really like no perfection. There is no such thing. And I've learned that, through my own experiences, you can plan, then the unplanned comes and you got to shift that plan. And so I really want to impart with my readers that experience and help through really kind of storytelling and a natural language and a friend across the table from you approach, how to kind of go through these experiences, these financial moments, these financial topics in a way that makes sense to you.
When you look back, hindsight is 2020, as the saying goes. When you look back, what would you say are the phases that you went through from the beginning and the unimaginable to me grief of dealing with the loss of your spouse, and probably the quest to make sure that you and your children actually had a bowl of cereal. That would be a victory, to then, another phase, and then to where you are today. What would you say about the I don't know what the right word is, the gestation of your lived experience?
Sure. Well, as I write in my book, although I'm a finance professional, my husband took care of all of our finances. That was a choice that we deliberately made. We showed responsibilities. He was good at it. So I said, sure, you take that on. I've got other stuff that we've got to deal with. And so I would say that immediate moment it's a reckoning. Where are we at? Where is everything? How do I, figure out where everything needs to go and take care of that? So it was kind of like setting the stage, resetting the foundation, understanding where my feet were. Was kind of phase one, I would say. And then kind of going through what I call grief paperwork and the money paperwork, and trying to, reestablish myself as a new household. And really learning through that experience, relearning a lot of the concepts, because it changes when you become, a single person with a family. Your investment choices are different. How you think about savings is different. How you think about wants and needs is different. So really thinking through, what do I want? What do we need? And how do I make plans for that? And then talking to people that I trusted, learning how to ask those questions in a confident manner, and slowly but surely gaining more of this information, going, I didn't know that. I wouldn't have known that and I need to tell people
Mm,
about this. Um, yeah, and I think now I feel like I have a better plan for my family and myself.
mm,
I've learned a lot more about things like insurance and protection, and I'm like banging on the drum to tell people like it can happen.
yeah.
You need to think about this. It's not an if, it's a must. And how do you
Mm,
fit that in? But also learning from my husband who had a very long journey with his illness that he didn't sacrifice for us. Like we made deliberate choices, and that's the on your terms piece. What matters most to us? And you may likely not have to worry about a ticking time clock in the background, but
mm,
he made it very clear to us, and I carry that with me now. Wants are important. And if you
mm,
sacrifice everything, what I don't want for my readers is to turn back and go, man, I
yeah.
wish I had done that. I had made that intentional decision with my money to have that experience, to do that thing, to buy that thing, because that's also important. So it's not about
Mm.
sacrifice all the time. It's about making the right choices.
How did you think about the level and manner in which you engaged your kids in finances? Because I'm sure there were so many things that you had to choose on a day-to-day basis. Do
Mm-hmm.
I include them? Are we transparent? What's age appropriate? Or do they have enough to worry about? And let's not include that. So how did you think about the conversation about money
Yeah.
in those acute times and
Yeah.
then over the time that's lapsed since?
Total fair question. Honestly, I would say at the beginning, I was trying to protect them and shield them from that reality. But as time went on, I've been very transparent. And before that, my husband and I really tried to put the money conversation in as much as we could. But they know, we're on one income now.
Yeah.
And there are choices that we have to make. And, they contribute in what way, be it like we can't make that decision now, or, my daughter has a job now. Like this is a household that we support together. And I think it's important for them. And I'm trying to teach them the same concepts in the age appropriate way. And I've hopefully imparted a bit of that as well in the book too.
SMART is an acronym that we hear a lot about in a goals context. How do you use that framework in the context of your book?
Sure. Well, I think when you think of just about money values and what your needs and your wants are, be specific.
Mm,
Not, just generalities. Like it's important for me to have a vacation with my kids, let's say once a year. That's a specific thing. Measurable. 1 week, 2 weeks. How much are you willing to spend? How much are you willing to save for that? Achievable. Sure, I want to go on $100,000 cruise. That's not going to be likely. So, what is possible within, with my income, with timing, with what my kids want, with what our needs are? Realistic is the same thing. What can I possibly? And maybe it's not this year. Maybe it's next year. Maybe it's once every 3 years. Depending on how the world goes. And then, time bound, set a date, set a goal, and maybe that'll
mm,
change because that's what plans are about. But if you don't put a line in the sand, chances are you're not going to hit it. So make it time bound so you can work towards that goal and talk about it with your family.
mm. In these periods, there is the spending that doesn't let up, even though you've been dealt with a trauma. There's also, I'm sure, comfort things that some people who have walked a similar path would say, like, I shopped till I dropped, or I whatever else. There was a real challenge in managing impulses because of what you're dealing with in the day to day. What perspective would you have on the spending side of things for people who are dealing with heavy stuff?
Mm. Try to look at it with kindness. I myself, like, there were moments where I was like, I just need to spend buy this.
Yeah,
That sweater looks really great, and I just want it because I want it.
yeah.
Um, but ask the questions, like, why did I buy that? What was I feeling? Would I have done that again? I needed that right now. And so acknowledge that sometimes we just make these decisions because they're what we need in the moment, but they aren't necessarily habits that we want to continue indefinitely because they don't align with our goals, right?
Mm,
Like maybe my plan was to update my wardrobe because I'm getting a new job. Cool. Then that makes sense. But if it was because right now I just needed that, don't don't put the shame in. It's not going to help.
mm,
Stop, reflect. And in the book, like there's questions I help the readers to kind of think about. Why did that happen? What could I have done differently? What are some tips and tricks to kind of maybe approach that differently next time? But approach it with curiosity versus shame.
Your last chapter is around sustaining financial freedom and success. What does that take? I mean, so often we talk about like course correction and dealing in crisis. And, we've got for most of us, then decades and decades to come that are outside of that particular incident, whatever it may be. What are some thoughts you'd have on sustainability?
Sure. So I think one is having a plan. Again, that plan that works for you on your terms, but then making sure that you come back to that plan on a set, let's say annually, because things change. Your income changes. So what are the implications of your income changing? And I also talk about sometimes it's that kind of inflation with the income. So you make more, you spend more. Make sure you're not tripping yourself on that. So what if you have higher income, where does that extra piece go? And I talk about 50, 30, 20 wants, needs, wants, and like savings and debt. Like how do you want to manage that? So sustaining and great. Next level, how do I still stick to my plan with another, threshold that I'm at? How do we think about new kids, education, illnesses, family? Like you need to keep on reflecting on the plan and make sure that it still makes sense so that it can continue the way you want it to. And maybe your values change. It's also
Mm.
like thinking about what do you want? Has anything changed from a values perspective? And making sure that you're constantly reflecting back.
You write about legacy, building a lasting
Mm.
legacy. What does that mean for you today?
Yeah, that word is quite loaded and has changed
Mm.
significantly over the last 5 years. I think when we think of like legacy, a lot of people think about money, which is definitely a part of it. But I've learned that legacy has so much more meaning to just than the numbers. It's what are the values you want to impart on your kids? What do you want to teach them about how you think about money and the lessons that you've learned? What are the ways that you want to tell your story and move that to the next generation? How do you want to protect the next generation, wealth wise, value wise? And so thinking about it more holistically as opposed to just the money, I think is has been a big aha for me and something that I also want to share with others.
Congrats on the book, and thank
Thank
you
you,
for
Bruce.
sharing your story. I know it's going to make a difference.
Thank you.
That's great. Marlene Chiarotto wrote a book called Achieve Financial Freedom on Your Own Terms. She is a CPA. And thanks again for joining us today, Marlene.
Thank you.